Something else that's of great concern to me is our ability to protect ourselves. I mean, you got Ralph Northam saying that we're not going to have the death penalty in Virginia anymore, and at the same time, everybody seems to be ignoring the fact that his parole board is letting convicted killers who are supposed to get life without parole out onto the streets. So if there was ever a time in modern Virginia history where you need to have access to a gun, I think it's now. And yet President Biden and his team are indicating that they're going to use executive orders to try to come up with some ways to restrict your ability to purchase a gun, own ammunition, buy ammunition. Mark Meckler is the president of the Convention of States, one of the co-founders of the Tea Party. And Mark, I wanted to have you on here. What are you hearing may be about to go down in Washington when it comes to the Second Amendment?
Hey, John, good morning. By the way, thank you for your position on telling the truth. I agree with you on the transgender issue, and this crosses all issues in the country, and it crosses into this Second Amendment issue, which is what we're hearing about first and foremost is a quote-unquote assault weapons ban. Mm-hmm. And we're hearing that from people who are making the definitions based on, first of all, no understanding of guns or ammunition or magazines or anything like that at all. And we're also hearing that this is a great way to cut down on crime in America, on mass murders in America. The truth is we've already done this. Joe Biden is one of the people who helped push it when we did it. And the statistics are in. This is old history in America. It makes no difference. These are not weapons of mass destruction. These are not weapons that are used very often in murders in this country. The numbers are incredibly low, but that's the first step they're talking about is banning what they call assault weapons. And we have to say in plain English that means weapons that they find scary.
Yeah. What is the definition they're using now? Is it anything with more than 6 bullets in it, or?
Yeah, we don't know yet. I mean, they certainly haven't proposed anything, but we can guess from things that have been proposed in the past. Often they talk about things with a barrel shroud. For those of you that are familiar with weapons, that just means something to keep you from burning your hand on a barrel. I don't know why that makes it any more dangerous. Things with a forward-mounted grip, so that would be a steadying grip on the front end of a gun. Things with extended magazines beyond 10 rounds. These are not things, by the way, that make guns any more dangerous, but they make them scary looking to people who aren't familiar with firearms.
Mm-hmm. And what is the process here? Is this going to be a normal legislative process where you got to get it through the House of Representatives, which they probably could, and then overcome the 60-vote barrier in the U.S. Senate? Is this one of the places they'd use the nuclear option in the Senate to pass this? Or do we think that Joe Biden is emboldened with his executive authority and the executive orders that he's been issuing, and he'll find some way around the legislative process?
I think their intent and their preference would be to do it legislatively, which actually, to be fair, that would be the better way to do it if they think they're going to do this. I don't think they can do it legally and constitutionally, and I think they're going to run head-on into the Supreme Court on this, but legislatively probably would be their first step. But Joe Biden was very clear. He said unequivocally that he doesn't need to wait an hour or even a minute. He wants to do this right now, which means he's also considering executive action, and that's been talked about as well, and I think that's absolutely blatantly unconstitutional.
And what would that look like? I'm trying to think of how he could, through an executive order that the lawyers, you know, even liberal lawyers would say, man, you can't just legislate by fiat here. What would he try to do, you think?
Well, the way that they would do this is they would play with the rules and regulations as issued by the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. This is how they're going to get at gun control most generally, is they simply, quote-unquote, reinterpret the regulations, and they'll just change the way that they look at existing regulations on the book. Now, I'm a lawyer, and so I say this honestly and openly about lawyers. We're really good at twisting language. And so what they'll do is they'll take language, they'll find language that they can use to twist, to ban whatever kind of weapons they want to ban. And then what happens is it puts the burden on the gun rights organizations. You have some really good ones there in Virginia or all across the country to go fight against this. So the presumption will be from the administration, they have the ability to do this through the regulatory bodies, and then we're going to have to fight back against that.
Yeah. Well, the fighting back is one of the questions that I want to ask you about. I get a lot of emails since the election from people saying, John, you're great at flagging issues for us in the public, but you fall short of telling us how we can reclaim our country. So what would you say? What does fighting back look like? I mean, the first thing, I was a communications director for a U.S. senator. The first thing that I would say is do call the Senate offices and do write letters. I mean, that's the most civilized thing that somebody could do. But what else would you put on your list of things that the average person could do to make sure that this doesn't go in the wrong direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is correct, but we should also make sure that we're targeting the right people in that. So if you're calling senators, if you're reaching out to senators, for sure your own, but we should also be talking about Manchin in West Virginia and Tester in Montana and Sinema in Arizona. I think those are the three most vulnerable senators on this issue. I think they're out of step with their constituents if they do something like this. So those are the three that I would focus on. And then I would go much more broadly, and that is, this is my personal bias because I had this project. You mentioned the Convention of States project. The only way we're going to fix this is to take the power away from Washington, D.C. to do these things. The problem is that the Supreme Court, in large measure, has granted this power to federal agencies, to the federal government, by the expansion of the enumerated powers. It's not constitutional. It was never intended to be constitutional, and we were given a method for fixing this by calling an Article 5 Convention of States and specifically taking these powers away from the federal government. I've been traveling all over the country. In the last few weeks, we've passed committee hearings in West Virginia and South Carolina and Kansas. And, in fact, yesterday we passed the House. Is people are rising up and realizing we have to use the constitutional tools available to us. So folks can go to conventionofstates.com and join and get involved in something where we can actually get our hands around the throats of the federal government and shove it back into the constitutional box.
Yeah. Well, I sure saw a lot of your people at CPAC a couple of weeks ago in Orlando. That continues to be a big issue being discussed in conservative circles, and I hope that people will pay attention to it.
Yeah, I think we have to. Look, this is one of the things that's frustrating me, John, and you said you get this outreach from your listeners. When I listen to the politicians who are out there today, and we've got some good guys on the right and in libertarian circles, I'm not hearing a plan from them. I'm hearing lamenting and wailing into the wind.
Right.
Things that the left is doing. I'm also hearing that from all the big conservative organizations, and the only organization I know that has a plan and is actually organized to take the power away from the federal government is Convention of States.
Yeah, but that is an important situation. You can give anybody a couple of weeks, a couple of months to be sad and angry and upset about the election results, but at some point there's got to be a stoic, thoughtful reorganization of what the plan is going forward, and it can't happen just a couple of months before the midterm elections. There's got to be a strategic move forward, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Mark Meckler, who's the president of the Convention of States and one of the co-founders of the Tea Party nationally. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
God bless you. Thanks a lot.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.